There are hormones, and biologically, for another human's reason, you have to go through all of this emotional mess. And I was just like, okay, like I can't go back. You really think that you are this lone person surrounded by people. Like, that's our mental projection of how the world works. Men and women cannot plan the same way. There are multiple reasons as to this, but as a woman who has gone through all stages, okay, most of the time what you find online are women who are single, meaning that when it comes to biology or interrelationships, that's not it. When you get married, it's different. When you have kids, it's different. You're going through biological differences that make you different. And I didn't even realize this, okay? When I first got married, it was so easy, right? It felt like me and him were exactly the same. We're functioning the same way. I was getting my money, he was getting his money. We were both trying to get employed. We were spending money the same way. We were splitting everything 50-50. But it wasn't until I decided to go on a different path in which I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And then after that, having one kid, having two kids, that is when it set in. It seems like when the biology part of it comes in, that's when you start realizing. But even before that, you have periods. So men are more linear, women are more cyclical. And I'm talking about this mostly from the habits point of view when it comes to self-improvement. These are the factors that you have to take into account. So what does this mean? Age of 12, once a month, you have a habit that a man does not have. This is a biological change, which means there's something going on internally that is causing the bleeding. This also contributes to your hormones, which is your emotional state of being. So you have more highs and lows. There's this whole idea of lunar period in which right before the period, PMSing, right? That's what we kept on hearing about. That is impacting your habits and how you are able to show up and your energy. While a man typically does not have to think about this. So from a very young age, this is starting already. But due to the prominence of the pharmaceutical industry, which means now you can take pills and you don't have to have your period anymore. Even though this was something that women have, it is a hindrance to her career. It's a hindrance for her ability to take tests. Oh my God, y'all. Those tests, and you're on your period, you're in physical pain, you have to take pills. You have to, you know, you feel like you have to. And now if we have ingrained those ideas or these things that we do, these habits, every time that you're on your first day of period, you're going to take the pill. Now you feel better. You don't feel stressed out. Your identity as a woman is no longer connected to your ability to actually show up. Now that can cause a lot of beliefs that being a woman or being on your period is actually a bad thing. And if you have that belief long enough, it's going to show up in how you act. So now maybe being feminine is actually a weakness instead of being masculine. All of these different ideologies impact how you show up because they are actually within the habit loop. Every single thing that you want to do starts from an internal desire. It's going to be your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, your identity. Those are what contribute to whether or not you show up and act in a certain way. But a lot of people don't seem to realize that. We focus mostly on the behavior. What do I do? It's more important what you think and what you believe, because you only act because you believe it. For somebody who's not a smoker, in my case, I don't feel any sort of absence when I don't smoke. It doesn't do anything for me, right? But for another person, it's completely different. And that's why people are different, because of their internal state of being. Islamically, this is about like the heart, okay? That's where we focus, but other people talk about it as mindset, so that's what I use too. So the biggest problem is that in the self-improvement field, you do not hear this. You only see women who look a certain way. You only see men who look a certain way. And I had such a hard time, and I do to this day, and that's why I come on here, because I realized that role models are so important. People that you interact with on a day-to-day basis. Typically, it would be somebody within your community. Unfortunately, that's not the reality that we have. We see people's stories on a regular basis, and that impacts our mindset about how the world works rather than our community. We don't see people. So that's why I'm coming online and talking more about this. I don't want to be online. Ooh, comments, don't want to deal with it. But I understand the impact that it has. And my thing is about transformation. We learn by two ways: by trial and error, by trying things ourselves, or by seeing other people model it so that we can understand mentally what our capacities and abilities are. So in my case, who do I follow? I follow a lot of white business people, be it a woman or man. But that's what I typically see. I am Western as can be. You see me very American, okay? My ideas, the way that I speak, that is what it is. However, I started realizing that this is not fitting, okay? So that's why I study Islamic thought, and I didn't just take classes. This is what I do. This is my habit. I read books on a regular basis from scholars that are beyond time, okay? okay? Like people who have been before that a lot of people don't even read about. So this is one of my habits, keystone habit for me, because my mindset is important. Everything starts from an internal desire and your understanding and your knowledge. So what I have done is over the past 3 years, I have finished over 100 books, and that means that I really get the stuff, okay? But more importantly, I take both the secular and the Islamic and I cross-reference them. I'm more of a researcher than an influencer. So here is what I found. Ideologically speaking, there's a lot of contradictions when it comes to Islamic beliefs. And as a practicing Muslim, as a woman, I just cannot take a lot of the ideals and ideas that are being perpetuated. I have to constantly cross-reference this, but that has helped me to kind of gain a deeper understanding so that I can automatically do things. And one of the biggest things is about male-female. How do things work? So for instance, as somebody who is married, life is a lot harder. My life is interconnected with another person, okay? So I used to be on top of my game before I was married. On top of it, I would do all of these things. Half the time was in arguments, okay? I've known my husband for 10 years, okay? Our meet-anniversary was a few months ago. We've been learning each other's differences, and it's not efficient. Relationships are not efficient. It's gonna take hours of you talking every single night, trying to figure out your differences. Why does he think this way? Why does she think this way? How do we combine our habits together? For instance, I am an early riser. I wake up between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. every day, but he's a night owl. So that one has been the hardest thing, okay? So when you are married, your life changes. Then you have a kid, biologically, subhanAllah. It was only after I had postpartum depression, I started realizing the difference between a man and a woman. There are hormones, and biologically, for another human's reason, you have to go through all of this emotional mess. And I was just like, okay, like I can't go back. Like men and women are different when it comes purely to biology and how that works. Of course, at the same time, you're very much like the same, okay? Like it's not me against you, it's us together. This is teamwork. But because we live in an individualistic society, we really truly believe that being individual, like you really think that you are this lone person surrounded by people. Like that's our mental projection of how the world works. But we are all interconnected. And this ideal is more like Eastern, more Islamic, more, people of religion. When you're praying in congregation, you get more hasanat. When you help other people, you get more. If you want to get closer to Allah, you give more charity. We are an interconnected web, but we believe that we're not. And also, if you want to succeed and go further, it's better to do it as a team. And it is possible. And in marriage, and when you create your relationships, that goes long term. You invest a lot of your time, your energy, and your attention, but in the long term, it goes further. Now, how do we deal with the differences between men and women when it comes to the self-improvement field? Women have to plan their habits in a cyclical manner, while men don't have to. That's the main difference. So this is how I do it. I have daily habits, weekly habits, and monthly habits. I also have designed my habit tracker in order to be able to deal with that fact. As a practicing Muslim, having to pray 5 times a day, I've tried every single app, but whenever my period would come, I didn't do the 5 habits that are crucial. So do I check them off? No. I have to do something a little bit different. So what I do on my habit tracker is that I change the colors and then I still check them off because it's still an act of ibadah to follow the rulings. But then I would do my weekly habits a lot more frequently. So if I had to do dhikr, I do 100 times every single day, then instead of doing that, I actually time it. So I do it for 5 minutes. I do it for the allotted time that is for praying.